A good morning to you. What came out of yesterday's session? It was the first day yesterday. I can imagine a lot coming out of there. I mean, I heard the excitement, particularly around this African university that I know Graça Michel was part of that panel. Tell us a little bit more about that. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Leanne. Well, yes, you're absolutely right. There was a lot of excitement. One of the biggest themes that dominated yesterday's sessions was, of course, the issue of this biggest university that Africa wants to, that has a plan of establishing. And yes, Graça Michel and Donald Kaberuka were briefing the media about that, obviously making education a very, very big priority for the African continent. And also, what caught a lot of my attention at yesterday's sessions was the issue of entrepreneurship and youth entrepreneurship in particular. Most of the delegates are advancing youth-led and youth-owned businesses in Africa to ensure that Africans, they build the next Bill Gates, if you like, of Africa, and they start them very, very young. This morning, though, Team South Africa has started its own sessions as well. Minister Rob Davies has had a very intimate session this morning with the South African media, speaking to us about industrialization, trade issues in Africa, and how Africa and South Africa, or rather South Africa, can work with Africa into making sure that infrastructure development is done throughout the continent. Remember, we want to do all those intra-trade development and trade amongst Africa. And also one of the themes is the issue of digitizing the marketplace and how we can advance that. But Minister Rob Davies is joining me this morning, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about what the plan with regards to trade and industrialization development is for Team South Africa. Minister Rob Davies, welcome. Thank you very much for your time. This is a very interesting topic with regards to industrialization. I know that back home we have a whole lot of industrialization plans. The IPAB creating about 100 industrialists in Africa or in South Africa. How are those plans coming along, and how are we selling this message to Africa?
Well, we launched the latest iteration of our Industrial Policy Action Plan earlier this week, so that is guiding our work for the next financial year and the 2 outer years as well. We launched it actually in a factory which is owned by a black industrialist who is benefiting from the infrastructure programs and from the railway recapitalization programs in particular. But I think that the background to this particular WEF is that the continent has been talking about diversification, industrialization, regional integration as a tool to create a larger African market to support industrialization, cooperating through our regional economic communities, for example in SADC, on industrial development, developing cross-border value chains and so on. But all of this has been made much more urgent by the impact of the global economic crisis.
Absolutely.
We haven't just seen lower levels of growth, we've actually seen very, very sharp terms of trade moving against mineral commodity exporting countries. We've seen the prices of mineral commodities, the oil as well, going down very, very sharply. Most of our countries, including South Africa, are basic overall place in the global division of labour is a producer and exporter of some or other mineral commodity, and that has meant that our efforts to diversify, move up the value chain, industrialise have just become that much more urgent. Now, one of the themes here in the WEF, which the WEF is taking into Africa now, was developed at the WEF in Davos earlier this year. It's this thing called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And basically what they're saying to us is that there's 23 technologies, everything ranging from robotics, the Internet of Things, where different devices can be connected up on the Internet and production systems can be coordinated through the Internet, where we have things like 3D printing, where we have all kinds of other innovations driven by essentially spin-offs from information communications technology that are going to make very radical changes in systems across the world, and which could actually mean that there is what's called a reshoring of major industrial activities back to the heartlands of the industrialized world. And so I think that's the challenge that Africa faces. So it is that we have to adapt to very rapidly changing technologies. We have to become able to master these. We have to become innovators. challenges in all of this. And I think that's where some of these announcements are relevant, that there's a major skills revolution that we have to become part of as well as trying to avoid some of the negative effects of this, which could be losses of jobs, which could also mean that loss of productive capacity in Africa, or little we've got, could end up being moving elsewhere. So I think these are the challenges. This is the background to this particular WEF.
Let me just come back to you with regards to what the World Economic Outlook released yesterday, saying that South Africa has moved down from being the second largest economy, being overtaken by, of course, Egypt, and first being Nigeria. This is of concern. How do we still send a message to investors here in the World Economic Forum to say that we are open for business when things are not going so well for us back home?
Well, I think that these rankings have got nothing much to do with who's performing well and who's performing badly in that respect, relative. What we've got is we've got an overall improvement in performance on the African continent. And we've got a couple of countries with large populations which have been doing relatively better over the last few years, and that their GDPs are larger than ours in overall terms. So Nigeria is a country with 170 million people. More than 3 times the population of South Africa. They ought to have a larger GDP than South Africa, and the fact that they've got one means that there are more opportunities for South African businesses on the continent, because the continent is growing. If the continent was stagnating, we have less opportunities on the continent as South Africa. Egypt has a population of 90 million people, which is again nearly twice ours. So I think those are the factors. So it's not a relative league table. South Africa remains per capita larger than either of those, and we are also the most industrialized country on the African continent. We have an infrastructure in place which is much more developed than elsewhere on the continent. We have business systems in place, and we have businesses that are interacting with the rest of the continent. That's our value proposition. And we are taking steps to ensure that investors have an easier interaction with us as government through initiatives like Invest South Africa, the one-stop investment facility. So I think that we're coming here and telling people that, yes, we've got challenges as a country, but, for example, earlier this week, through the work with business and government, the partnership that was forged there, that was taken note of, and that was a significant factor leading Moody's to keep our investment grading stable. So I think those are the messages that we'll be conveying here, that we're at work. We've got challenges. We've got challenges as a country. We've got challenges as a continent, but that we are working together to address those, and we're making progress on a number of fronts.
Minister Davies, thank you very much. I'm afraid I'm going to have to wrap it up there. Thank you very much. Well, Leanne, you've heard it from the Minister himself. He is acknowledging that South Africa does have challenges, and we are working on it. The partnership we have with government, business and labour is expected to bear fruit in the coming times. There will be a whole lot of sessions, and I'm expecting the Minister of Finance to be hosting some of the sessions. I'll be telling you about that tomorrow morning when I cross over to Morning Live. Back to the studio.
Liabo, thank you very, very much for that and the update and interview with our Minister, Rob Davies, who's also obviously attending the World Economic Forum on Africa. And as we said, very exciting developments coming out of this meeting, and lots of big heavyweights and decision makers that are there from the continent. But this university really got my attention, and I think it's a fantastic initiative. So let's hope that it gets the support that it needs to get off the ground.